Will Smith tried to humiliate Keanu Reeves live, but regretted it instantly. It all started on what was supposed to be a casual and light-hearted Hollywood roundtable interview. A famous late-night show had invited a star-studded panel that night, actors known for action, drama, and legacy role. Will Smith sat confidently at one end of the stage, known not only for his blockbuster films, but also for his charisma and sharp sense of humor. Just a few seats away, calmly sipping water and smiling politely, was Keanu Reeves. Humble, reserved, and effortlessly cool. The dynamic between the two was noticeable from the beginning. Will, as always, was the life of the conversation, cracking jokes, gesturing broadly, commanding attention. Keanu, in contrast, kept a low profile, only speaking when prompted, often offering brief but thoughtful responses. The host led the panel through questions about legacy roles, transformations for the screen, and how each actor connects with their characters. Will joked about how sometimes you just gotta look good and say the line, getting a few laughs. But when the topic turned to modern action franchises, things took an unexpected turn. The host turned to Keanu, asking about the rise of John Wick and how the franchise had evolved. Keanu began to answer in his usual quiet tone, mentioning choreography, stunt training, and the emotional depth of the character. That's when Will cut in, smiling, and said something that changed the entire mood of the room. In front of a live audience and rolling cameras, Will leaned in and asked, almost mockingly, "I mean, come on, Keanu. What's so hard about playing a guy who just walks around, shoots people, and barely talks?" The laughter was awkward. The host shifted in his seat. And Keanu? He didn't flinch. He just stared back at Will for a few seconds. The studio got quiet, too quiet. Something had shifted. The moment was no longer funny. It was about to become unforgettable. The air in the studio changed. The moment those words left Will's mouth, what was meant to be a playful jab landed with an unexpected weight. You could feel it in the silence that followed. The kind of silence that doesn't happen in Hollywood interviews, not with studio lights on, cameras rolling, and a live audience hanging on every word. Will leaned back in his chair, smiling, clearly expecting laughter, maybe even applause, but it didn't come. The room wasn't laughing. The audience didn't know if this was a joke or a real dig. The host glanced at the producers off stage. Something about Will's tone felt different, not charming, not teasing. It felt dismissive, and the way he said it, a guy who just walks around, shoots people, and barely talks. It wasn't just a comment about the role. It was a shot at Keanu's entire body of work. It questioned his talent, his method, even his artistic credibility. And it wasn't just the words. It was the way Will said it, like he was trying to remind everyone who the real movie star was on that stage. But what Will didn't anticipate was that he had just challenged the wrong guy. Keanu didn't blink. He didn't smile. He didn't even shift in his seat. He just looked at Will with that same calm, unreadable expression that audiences around the world have come to associate with strength. Not loud, not flashy, but deep, focused, and immovable. The pause that followed felt like it stretched for minutes. The crowd was holding its breath. The host tried to move on, nervously, chuckling and reaching for a follow-up question. But Keanu raised one hand slightly, just enough to signal that he had something to say. And in that single gesture, everyone knew this wasn't going to be a punchline. This was about to be a lesson, one that Will Smith and the entire audience would not forget. But let me tell you something, because right at this exact moment, standing on the edge of that emotional tension, that's where everything changes. The most powerful part of this story hasn't even started yet. And what happens next? It's not just about a comeback. It's a real-life lesson in humility, love, and grace. Before we continue, I want to ask you for one quick favor. Type the word respect in the comments below. That one simple comment helps this message reach more people across the country. And trust me, what you're about to see is something everyone should witness at least once in their lives. It's a reminder that silence can speak louder than any insult, and that dignity always wins. commented, "Thank you so much." And if you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and drop a like. Your support means the world to us and helps us keep sharing these powerful moments with more people. May life bless you back double for every good thing you send out into the world. Now, let's get back to it. Because what Keanu says next, it left the entire room stunned. Keanu Reeves didn't respond right away. He didn't defend himself, didn't crack a joke to smooth over the tension. He just sat there, his eyes locked onto Will Smith, completely still. That silence? It was deafening. You could hear the faint hum of the studio lights, the nervous cough of someone in the back row, the tension in the host's shifting body. It was the kind of silence that forces everyone to focus, not on noise, but on presence. Keanu wasn't just sitting quietly. He was commanding the moment. Will, who seconds ago had delivered what he thought would be a room-silencing zinger, was now visibly uncomfortable in the silence he had created. His smile faltered. His eyes darted toward the host. The energy shifted, and everyone could feel it. This wasn't just awkward, it was powerful. Keanu leaned slightly forward, never breaking eye contact. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't change his expression. But there was weight in his pause, in the way he carried himself. People often talk about actors owning a room, but in that instant, Keanu owned everyone's attention without saying a single word. It was as if the audience, the crew, and even Will were frozen, waiting for the punch that would never come. Because Keanu wasn't preparing to strike back. He was preparing to speak truth. He finally opened his mouth calmly and with absolute composure said, "You know, sometimes the loudest performances come from the quietest pain." The words dropped like thunder. No shouting, no ego, just truth, plain and simple. A truth so disarming, so direct, that the crowd didn't even react right away. It took a few seconds for the weight of that sentence to settle in, and when it did, you could see it on Will's face. That was the moment he realized this wasn't a man he could rattle. This wasn't someone desperate to prove himself. Keanu had nothing to prove, and yet, with a single sentence, he had said more than Will could have ever prepared for. Now it was Will who was silent. Keanu didn't rush. He let the silence sit a little longer, because sometimes what you don't say says everything. And when he spoke again, his voice was calm, almost gentle, but every word hit with precision. He turned slightly toward the host, then back to Will and said, "John Wick isn't just a guy who kills. He's a man who lost everything, and he's surviving the only way he knows how." The audience was silent again, but this time it was out of reverence. Keanu wasn't defending a movie role. He was opening a window into the soul of a character millions had cheered for without fully understanding why. He continued, "When I took that role, I wasn't looking to be a hero. I was looking to tell the truth about grief, about what it feels like to lose the one person who gave your life meaning, and to keep moving forward, even when nothing makes sense anymore." Will looked stunned. You could see the shift in his face. He hadn't expected this. He expected Keanu to brush it off or laugh along, but instead, he was getting a masterclass in emotional storytelling from a man most people underestimated. Keanu looked out toward the audience, now fully locked in, and added, "People don't go to John Wick just to see gunfights. They go because there's something broken in all of us. And when they see him fighting, they're seeing a part of themselves trying to survive." It was raw, honest, and it hit differently. No flashy gestures, no dramatic music, just one man speaking from a place of pain and purpose. The emotional intelligence, the vulnerability. It wasn't what anyone expected from a silent assassin, and that's exactly why it landed so hard. People weren't just seeing Keanu the actor anymore. They were seeing Keanu the artist. And Will? He was learning in real time that sometimes the most dangerous man in the room isn't the one who raises his voice, but the one who doesn't need to. Keanu leaned back in his chair, still composed, but now speaking with a little more ease. He wasn't performing, he wasn't debating, he was teaching. And as the audience leaned in, you could feel it. He had just taken control of the room without ever trying to. "John Wick," he said, "isn't just about revenge. It's about what grief does to a man. It's about honor, consequence, and loyalty in a world that doesn't value those things anymore. The words settled like dust after an explosion. You could almost hear people thinking, not just about the character, but about themselves, about the people they've lost, about the rage they've buried, about the loyalty they've given in a world that often doesn't give it back. Will, for a moment, seemed unsure of how to respond. This wasn't a conversation about guns or box office numbers anymore. It was about something deeper, something human. Keanu went on, explaining how he worked with the stunt team for months, how every move in John Wick was choreographed with intention. It's not just action, he said. It's storytelling through movement. Every punch, every fall, it all means something. It's all part of the journey of a man who doesn't want to die, but doesn't know how to live anymore. And just like that, the entire tone of the segment had changed. It wasn't entertainment, it was art. People in the audience started nodding, murmuring in agreement. Even the host, who had been nervously shifting earlier, was now fully locked in, clearly moved by what he was hearing. Keanu was doing something rare in Hollywood. He was using his platform not to boast, but to inspire. And not with big words or emotional outbursts, but with clarity, humility, and honesty. He finished the thought by saying, "Pain doesn't make you weak, it makes you real. And when people see John Wick hurting, they don't just see a character, they see themselves. That's the difference." Will shifted in his seat, clearly feeling the weight of what had just happened. For a man who built his career on charm, timing, and always being one step ahead in the room, this moment felt like a trap he had unknowingly walked into. He tried to smile, tried to reclaim the energy with a joke. "Man, I was just playing, y'all really deep out here." But it didn't land. The laughter didn't come, because this wasn't the moment for jokes anymore. Everyone knew it. The vibe had shifted, and Will was now the only one still playing the old game. Keanu had elevated the conversation, exposed something raw and real, and suddenly Will's humor felt hollow, even defensive. It was the kind of pivot that might have worked on any other stage, but not here, not after what had just been said. Keanu didn't react. He didn't need to. The audience had already made the shift with him. And Will? He realized it. You could see it in his face. The confident smile faded into a tight, uneasy grin. He nodded, looking for an opening to recover, to reframe himself, to take the spotlight back. But the room wasn't offering that anymore. What was meant to be a light tease had turned into a public lesson, and he was on the receiving end of it. The audience wasn't angry at Will. They just weren't laughing with him anymore. They were thinking, feeling, reflecting, and that, for a performer used to controlling the rhythm of a crowd, is the most uncomfortable place to be. Will tried to pivot by saying something complimentary. "You know what, man? That's actually beautiful. I never thought of it like that." But even that felt like an attempt to save face. His tone didn't quite match the depth of what had just unfolded. And Keanu, he didn't flinch. He just nodded politely and responded, "A lot of people don't." That line, simple, soft, but razor-sharp, cut through the moment like a blade. Not out of anger, not out of ego, but as a quiet statement of truth. In a matter of minutes, the balance of the room had flipped entirely. Will, once the commanding voice, was now quietly following. And Keanu, without ever raising his voice, had become the center of gravity. Not by force, but by grace. After Keanu's calm but piercing response, the atmosphere in the studio shifted into something almost sacred. The audience didn't burst into immediate applause or cheer. No, it was a quiet, respectful kind of reaction, like the room collectively holding its breath before releasing it all at once. People's eyes were wide open, faces reflecting a mix of surprise, respect, and deep contemplation. It was clear they had witnessed something rare. Not just a celebrity exchange, but a moment of genuine humanity unfolding live, on camera. The energy wasn't about competition anymore. It was about understanding. You could feel the collective realization that this wasn't about who had the best one-liner or the flashiest career highlight. It was about honesty, vulnerability, and the power of humility. Comments started popping up live on social media, with viewers stunned and praising Keanu's grace and depth. Fans debated, shared clips, and tagged friends. This moment was already going viral, not because of drama, but because of truth. Will's usual confident persona was replaced by a thoughtful silence that no one expected, and many admired his willingness to listen, even if it was clear he was processing a hard lesson. The host, sensing the moment's weight, carefully steered the conversation toward respect and admiration, emphasizing the strength it takes to be vulnerable and authentic. It was one of those rare times where an interview transcends entertainment and becomes something meaningful, something viewers would remember long after the cameras stopped rolling. The respect in the room was palpable, and it was all because Keanu Reeves showed what true strength looks like without ever raising his voice. The moment the cameras cut off and the studio lights dimmed, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. Away from the public eye, behind the polished facade of glitz and glamour, Will Smith found himself caught in a rare and unexpected wave of introspection. Known for his infectious charisma and confidence that commands any room he enters, Will was, in that moment, silent. Those close to him described it as a profound pause, a moment when the usual bravado melted away, revealing a man wrestling with more than just a live TV exchange. The words Keanu had spoken echoed in his mind. The quiet dignity, the raw truth about pain, honor, and survival. It wasn't just about an actor's role anymore. It was a mirror reflecting parts of Will's own journey. Those long years of hard work, of balancing fame and family, of facing his own struggles with vulnerability, all came rushing back. Sources reveal that instead of brushing off the encounter or dismissing it as just another interview moment, Will did something few expected. He reached out. Late that evening, through a private message, he contacted Keanu, not to reignite the clash, but to express genuine respect. He acknowledged the depth of Keanu's words and thanked him for a lesson in humility that went far beyond Hollywood scripts. This act of reaching out was a clear sign of personal growth, a recognition that sometimes the most powerful moments happen off camera, in silence and reflection. Within Will's inner circle, the mood was thoughtful. His team shared that this experience sparked a serious re-evaluation of his own career trajectory and the legacy he hopes to leave behind. It wasn't just about blockbuster movies or chart-topping hits anymore. It was about authenticity, about embracing vulnerability without fear, and about connecting on a deeper level with audiences who crave realness over spectacle. This moment, born from what some might have called a rivalry or an attempt to humiliate, had transformed into a pivotal chapter of self-awareness and maturity for Will Smith. It was a reminder that true strength doesn't always roar. It listens, learns, and grows, even when it's uncomfortable. Keanu Reeves has always been known for his calm demeanor and humility, but what he shared during that interview went far beyond typical celebrity wisdom. As the conversation progressed, it became clear that Keanu was not just an actor defending a role. He was a man who had deeply reflected on life, loss, and the human condition. When asked about his career and the pressures of fame, Keanu revealed something profoundly unexpected. "I've learned that true strength isn't in fighting others, but in fighting the battles within yourself." This was no rehearsed answer. It was raw, honest, and it cut through the noise like a beacon. Keanu talked openly about the personal tragedies he faced, the loss of loved ones, the challenges of staying grounded amidst Hollywood's chaos, and the importance of kindness even when the world seems indifferent. His words weren't just inspiring, they were transformative, offering a rare glimpse into the man behind the movies. He emphasized that humility isn't weakness, but a source of incredible power, the kind that changes how you relate to others and to yourself. This unexpected wisdom stunned everyone, from the host to the viewers at home. It shifted the narrative from confrontation to connection. What could have been a moment of conflict became a moment of clarity and healing, reminding everyone watching that sometimes the quietest voices carry the loudest truths. Keanu's grace in that moment wasn't just about deflecting a jab, it was about elevating the conversation to something meaningful and timeless. As the interview came to a close, the weight of the moment lingered, not just in the studio, but reverberating far beyond it. What started as a potentially humiliating confrontation had transformed into a powerful lesson on respect, humility, and growth. The audience, both live and watching from home, witnessed something rare. Two giants of Hollywood revealing their vulnerabilities and humanity in real time. Social media exploded, not with gossip or drama, but with thoughtful reflections and heartfelt discussions about the importance of empathy, resilience, and kindness. For Will Smith, the experience became a turning point. The humility he displayed in the aftermath, reaching out to Keanu and openly reflecting on the encounter, showed a side of him that fans don't always see. A willingness to learn, to evolve, and to lead by example. For Keanu Reeves, the moment reinforced his reputation as one of Hollywood's most genuine and grounded figures, someone whose quiet strength inspires millions. The story serves as a reminder that even in moments of tension, there's an opportunity for growth. It shows that true power lies not in tearing others down, but in lifting each other up, even when it's unexpected. Both men walked away from that day with a deeper understanding of themselves and each other, leaving behind a legacy of respect that goes far beyond the spotlight. And for the viewers, it was more than just entertainment. It was a lesson in grace under pressure. A reminder that sometimes the greatest victories happen not on the screen, but in the quiet moments of reflection that follow.